Have you ever felt like something vital was missing from your life, even when everything seems just fine on the surface? Let me tell you a story, doctor. Carl Jung loved a tale about the water of life. Imagine a crystal clear artesian well, gushing freely for anyone to drink, each sip nourishing the soul. People flock, thrive, then slowly start fencing it off, charging admission, claiming ownership. Eventually, the well dries up, unnoticed by those fixated on control, and the living water reappears somewhere unexpected. The lesson? Our deepest nourishment, call it, meaning spirit or creative energy, is always flowing, but rarely where we expect. The technical term archetype describes these recurring symbols like water for the psyche's hidden roots. Now you might ask, why do we fence our own inner well? The answer lies in our desire for certainty and control. But in doing so, we risk losing touch with the wild, renewing source at the heart of growth. Here's the kicker. The water never truly disappears. It just moves, waiting for us to rediscover it in odd, overlooked places. Sometimes, the search for personal growth means letting go of old maps, daring to look in Nazareth, the last place you'd expect to find transformation. So, if you're feeling dry or disconnected, maybe it's time to become a seeker again. What overlooked corner of your life hides your living water today? Psychologists call this process individuation, the journey toward becoming whole. Think of individuation like tuning an instrument. You can't play your unique melody if you only use the approved strings. The places we avoid, the emotions we reject, may hold the very freshness we crave. So, as we begin, ask yourself, where has your water of life gone underground? And do you have the courage to search for it, even if it bubbles up in strange, uncomfortable places? That's the path to wholeness, and it's open to anyone brave enough to look. Let's dive into the heart of the shadow, a term Jung used for all the parts of ourselves we disown, forget, or push away. Picture your psyche as a seesaw. On one side, everything acceptable and good. On the other, all you're told to hide. Now, why do we even create a shadow in the first place? It starts in childhood, when we learn to separate good from bad, a necessary step for civilization, but also the root of inner division. But here's a twist. The shadow isn't just darkness or shame. Sometimes it hides gold or nobility, creativity, and unlived dreams. Have you noticed how often your best qualities, ideas, or passions seem out of reach? That's the gold in the shadow. Psychologists call this repression a technical term for burying traits outside conscious awareness. Like a storage room, the shadow collects not just skeletons, but treasures. You might be thinking, isn't it safer to keep the dark stuff locked away? But the truth is, the more we ignore the shadow, the more it erupts, sometimes as rage, illness, or self-sabotage. Let me share a personal example. I once worked so hard to be patient with difficult guests, only to lash out at a stranger later. That's what happens when the shadow isn't acknowledged. What's the solution? Ritual, a symbolic act to balance our inner seesaw. Even a simple gesture, like carrying out the trash after a triumph, can honor your shadow and restore equilibrium. So, I challenge you. What's lurking in your shadow? The anger, yes, but also the boldness or brilliance you're denying? The path to growth isn't perfection, but balance. Owning your shadow brings energy, creativity, and unexpected joy. Are you ready to face your whole self, even the parts you'd rather not see? Why is it that we so often see in others the very qualities we refuse to own in ourselves? This is the mechanism of projection, one of psychology's most powerful concepts. Imagine you're carrying a heavy backpack filled with traits, anger, envy, even unused talent, but instead of unpacking it, you hand it out to those around you. Ever met someone who immediately irritated you for no good reason? Or someone you held up as a hero? That's projection at work. We see this everywhere, across cultures, families, and even nations. The danger? When we project our darkness onto the other, it can lead to scapegoating, prejudice, or even conflict on a grand scale. Think of collective shadow. When groups or societies disown uncomfortable truths, they often find a villain to blame. On the flip side, projecting our gold can lead to idolizing others and missing our own potential. Here's a story. A father who never dreamed found that his 5-year-old son was dreaming vividly. Jung realized the son was carrying the father's shadow. When the father began to reclaim his own dreams, the sons stopped. The lesson? If we don't own our shadow, someone else, often our children, will have to carry it for us. Now, you might be wondering, can I refuse someone's shadow projection? Yes, but only if you've done your own shadow work. Otherwise, their shadow hooks into yours, and the familiar dance of conflict begins. The antidote is awareness. When you feel a surge of irritation or hero worship, ask yourself, what part of me am I seeing out there? The more you reclaim, the freer you become, and the world becomes that much lighter. Let's talk about the gold in the shadow, one of the most surprising and liberating discoveries on the path to personal growth. You see, it's not just our flaws or wounds that get hidden in the shadow, but also our highest gifts. Think back. Have you ever admired someone fiercely, only to realize later you had a spark of their quality within you? That's your own gold, projected outward. The technical term for this is positive projection, and it's just as limiting as negative projection. But here's the paradox. Most people resist their own greatness even more than they flee from their faults. Why? Because accepting your nobility or power can feel just as destabilizing as facing your darkness. Now, you might be thinking, isn't it easier to just let heroes be heroes and stay comfortably small? Yet, refusing your gold leaves life flat and your energy low. A mentor once advised me, if you want more energy, touch your shadow, even if just by doing something out of character. It could be as simple as a silly dance before a big meeting, or writing a wild short story after you've been the model of propriety. The shadow, dark and golden, contains the primal energy psychologists call libido. Not just sex, but the creative force of life itself. Let me ask you, what gold have you left in your shadow? What talents, passions, or strengths are waiting to be reclaimed? When you bring them home, life gets bigger, richer, more vibrant. The risk is real, but so is the reward. Are you ready to mine your hidden gold and step into your fuller self? Here's a tough question. What do you do when you feel torn between two utterly opposite values or desires, each demanding your loyalty? Welcome to the realm of paradox, the secret heart of spiritual and personal transformation. Most of us live in contradiction. We want to win and to lose, to own and to let go, to be free and to belong. The technical term for this split is cognitive dissonance. And left unresolved, it drains us, leaving life feeling meaningless. Now, you might think, isn't the answer just to choose one side or compromise? But true growth often comes from holding the tension, standing in the middle of the seesaw, so to speak, until a third creative solution emerges. This is what Jungians call the transcendent function. It's like an electrical outlet. Only by plugging into both positive and negative do you get a current that lights the room. Let me illustrate. When you face a tough decision and feel paralyzed, should I stay or should I go? Rather than rushing to action, can you stay with the discomfort, honoring both impulses? If you do, something unexpected happens. A synthesis forms, a new insight that isn't just a bland compromise, but a genuine breakthrough. So next time you're feeling the agony of contradiction, pause, welcome both sides. The miracle of paradox is that it turns opposition into creative energy. This is the door to wisdom and the sign of emotional maturity. Are you willing to hold the tension, trusting that something greater is brewing? Let's tackle one of the most charged topics of all, romantic love. Have you ever fallen head over heels, convinced you found the one, only to face heartbreak or disappointment? Well, what if I told you that falling in love is often a case of shadow projection? In Jungian terms, we place our own image of divinity, our highest golden qualities onto another person. And for a while, we live in a dream. Technically, this is called idealization. And it's like connecting your house wiring to a 10,000 volt power line. Yes, it's exhilarating. But ordinary relationships aren't built for that voltage. Eventually, the projection fades, reality returns, and we see the other as they are. The challenge and opportunity is to move from in-loveness, projection, to real love, which is seeing and embracing the actual person, flaws and all. Now you might ask, is it wrong to fall in love? Absolutely not, but it helps to know what's happening. If you can recognize the projection, you can reclaim your own gold and build relationships on genuine connection rather than fantasy. Here's an actionable step. Next time you're swept up in romantic awe, ask yourself, what qualities am I seeing in them that might also live dormant in me? Romantic love, at its best, wakes us up to our own potential. At its worst, it burns us out. The path to lasting intimacy is learning to love with eyes open, both in others and in yourself. Are you ready to transform the high voltage thrills of projection into the steady current of real human connection? Let's end by exploring a powerful symbol for integration, the mandorla. You've probably seen it in medieval art, a pointed oval, formed where two circles overlap. In Jungian psychology, it represents the holy union of opposites, the space where shadow and light, masculine and feminine, sacred and profane, meet and create something new. The technical analog here is the synthesis zone, the fertile overlap that births insight. You might wonder, isn't it dangerous to blend opposites? Won't I lose who I am? The truth is, the mandorla isn't about compromise, it's about transcendence. By holding the tension of conflict, by allowing paradox, you step into the creative center from which joy, energy, and wisdom flow. So, what does this look like in real life? It's the middle path between rigidity and chaos, the capacity to say yes to your wholeness. Maybe it's honoring your ambition and your need for rest, your longing for connection, and your desire for independence. The mandorla teaches us that healing is not about erasing difference, but about reconciling and celebrating it. As you move forward, I invite you, where in your life can you create a mandorla? Where can you bring together what you've kept apart and stand in the luminous overlap? That's where transformation happens, and where your water of life will flow, fresh and free.